If there's one way to do things, it's the Great Western way. It's time to look at how I made Duck the Great Western engine. So Duck actually wasn't meant to be my next completed model. I always planned to do him up at some point, but he wasn't a priority. During this gap since I showed Percy on my channel, I'd actually been working on James, but he has been the biggest frustration in my life, and that is why we are looking at Duck today instead of James. Duck's Bachmann model is actually extremely close to the prop. It's definitely one of Bachmann's best, along with the likes of Edward. However, he does need some modifications. I started by dremeling out his cab windows. Luckily, one of my Dremel pieces was the exact fit for this task. Then, using a pin drill, I weakened the side of the cab to create an opening, then sanded the area to make it smoother. This cab area became a bit problematic due to being weakened, and I had to use glue and putty to secure it back together. The Bachmann Duck comes in two separate pieces, the running board with the body, and the cab. At this stage, I began sanding the moulded handrails and whistle, and then used putty to fill in the seam lines. Once this was done, I sanded the main body's handrails and GWR, so Duck was a green canvas. I then gave Duck his first coat of primer, began filling and sanding again, and began drilling holes for where handrails would be positioned. After priming Duck again, I now had to make a decision. Due to Duck's main body being attached to the running board, it makes keeping the running board grey a bit of a challenge. Caleb Train decided to base his Duck with how the CGI series did it, and that was by keeping the whole running board black. I decided this was the route I would take, until I painted him green. I used Tamiya Park green for Duck, but I must not have pressed the masking tape properly, as the green had leaked all over the running board. This bummed me out a little, but I gave Duck a chemical bath and primed him ready for spraying again. At this stage, my stupid brain thought it would be a good idea to do the grey running board. I wanted Duck to look just how he did in the model era.
Oh dear.
So this time, I sprayed him green, masking off the running board area, but I decided I would hand paint his black elements with an acrylic, rather than spraying. There were a few problems, but after a few touch-ups, Duck was looking much nicer and cleaner. I then painted Duck's funnel area and his buffer beams with Tamiya X7 acrylic. Next was for the GWR decals. Luckily, I had worked with water slide decals before, on a Hudson Hornet model I made a few years back. I chose the Clifford's ones, as I liked the font a lot more. I applied them by soaking them in water, using tweezers to remove the lettering from the backing paper, and dabbing a bit of water on Duck's body to get the positioning correct. I was actually surprised how sturdy these decals were. Some water decals can become very weak and tear when trying to reposition, but that didn't happen in this case, so I'd have to recommend them. Next, I added his whistle thanks to Jamos, and then I added the buffers and brake pipes along with the number 8 thanks to the train modeler. I contemplated about adding a lamp but decided against it for the time being. Then I began adding the handrails. I started with the main base and then added the wire. This was easy for the cab area, but to achieve the curve on the front was a nightmare. In the end, I decided to do this with separate pieces rather than one whole piece. This made the process slightly easier, but still took a few attempts. I then clear coated Duck with Plasticoat Gloss Clear Sealer, and with that, Duck was complete. I think it's only time we see him in action. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing or even leaving a like and a comment. It really does help the channel. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I shall see you in the next one.